It's here. Why aren't we using it? Why aren't we generating power with it?
I felt really good. I thought, well, if there's a blackout, if the grid goes down, at least those turbines will be churning away, putting electricity into the grid.
Next thing you know, we had a test tower up on the farm.
I didn't know what the hell that was. Saw it outside of my kitchen window. Said to my wife, "What's that?" We didn't have a clue.
The other reason we signed was the same reason everybody does. It was for money.
Our town was agricultural. We've lost most of our farms.
It's like asking some poor miner to negotiate a good deal with Bethlehem Steel.
I guess I was naive. I never thought it would be so contentious an issue.
What the wind companies and corporations have done over the years is the split. And people who've been friends for years hate each other, saying vile things about each other.
Where are the developers? How come they're not here making presentations to us, telling us what they'll do for us?
This town board does not want to ban it, and I think that's the message we were trying to get to you.
We're not against alternate sources of energy. We're against these monstrosities.
These are mechanical structures. They're 40 stories tall.
One blade is 7 tons.
Spinning at 150 miles an hour. Try and think about that for a second.
When they build these out in the desert, they're putting them up on tracks that are 6,000 acres. We don't have anything like that here. We have homes here.
I think it's very subjective. Some people have looked at them and said they're beautiful. And I think others say, well, we'll get used to them.
This one across the road, 1,050 feet from where we live. And it sounds like the noise is in the walls.
How could you expect that when a program of this magnitude, which could be $75 million, $100 million, that they're going to compassionately feel bad for me or for you?
$500 for a neighbor agreement to live next to these, that's an insult. It's a joke.
But it was the idea that it was forever. It would be that way for the rest of my life.
Ask questions. Do your homework. Because once you let these guys in, your world is going to change forever, and there's not a thing that you're going to
I was really for wind energy. I thought it was fantastic. I thought, wow, wouldn't it be great to have 5 or 6 turbines stretched out across our farm? You know, I thought that would really be great, a fantastic thing. We could contribute to society and produce energy. About maybe 3 or 4 years later, all of a sudden, log trucks started rolling across the mountain and they started clear cutting, and lo and behold, I'm in town and I'm talking to some people, and you know, I say, you know, are they cutting timber up on top of the mountain? And they're like, well, yeah, didn't you hear they're putting wind turbines in? And I'm like, no way, you know, who's having this done? And they said, well, the people that own the mountain up there, they're gonna have the top clear cut and they're putting 20 wind turbines in. And it's kind of like all of a sudden this major industry comes into this real quiet area and they pound these things up really quick, and they come in and they put no trespassing signs up and they move out.
By doing this DVD, I kind of wanted to share with some of the people the things that we've experienced, that I've personally experienced. When the wind turbine company decided to build on Sand Spring Mountain, less than a mile from my home, I was unaware of the situation at first. I was told that there was a small article in the local newspaper that they were going to build a wind turbine facility. And I was like, oh my gosh, you know, I can't believe this. Like I said, I've lived here all my life, and what's coming into my backyard?
I've lived in this area probably about 30 years. I've been in this area. I was away for maybe a year or so. I operate my parents' farm, which is located between 3,000 and 4,000 feet away from the Myersville Wind Power Plant. I work construction probably about 6-8 months out of the year, and the rest of the time I'm working on my parents' farm. And I kind of have grown accustomed to loud noises. Unfortunately, this is a noise that I haven't grown accustomed to, and I can't seem to get out of my mind when I'm there. I kind of equate it to a heavy wind or a storm coming over the mountaintop, or a jet taking off.
The noise has personally affected my life in the fact that in my house you can hear the turbines running. They make a lot of noise. At nighttime when you lay down to sleep, if you don't get to sleep right away, after everything kind of settles down in the night, you'll hear like the thud noise of the turbines, the blades turning, and it's kind of a drone sound. It's a constant sound. It's like thud, thud, thud.
We hear, it's kind of a whooshing or a thud sound. It's a constant whoosh, whoosh, whoosh inside our homes.
Just so you know, come here. See this little, that big dot? That's the optimum where you want your audio. Now if we be quiet for a minute, watch where those lines are hit.
It's astounding how much noise they actually do make.
Yeah.
Right after the turbines had been put in and they had been turned on and they were creating this amount of noise, I could not sleep. I was losing sleep. It was affecting me at work. I was going to work. I was being grouchy. You know, I would get maybe 1-2 hours of sleep per night. I just couldn't take it anymore. So I went to the doctor. The doctor prescribed a medication for me. The medication is a sleep medication. When the doctor prescribed it to me, the doctor told me that I needed to be careful taking it because the doctor told me that sleep medication is addictive. So that's not, you know, I don't want to be addicted to a medication. But at the same time, I need to get my sleep. So I'm kind of caught, you know, I'm kind of caught in the middle. What do I do?
We lived in Germany for 3 years. When we were in Germany in the early 60s, there were vineyards climbing up over the mountains, and it was beautiful, and the industry was very strong. I don't know how strong it is now, but I do know that we went to Germany in June of 2001. We toured all over Europe with our son. Our family's mainly military, and our son is in the Air Force. He was stationed in Germany at the time. The vineyards are only climbing like part ways up over the mountains now, sitting on top, all around you, everywhere you go. You see these wind turbines. It's a horrible sight.
I think people need to take care of what they have and take care of the beauty of the environment around them instead of destroying it for the mighty dollar.
We bought our property here in 1966. My husband was in Vietnam. He came home from Vietnam at that time. We bought it for the view. We bought it intending to live here in our old age. And whenever I sit on my front porch now, I see those wind turbines spinning around. They don't make life any easier.
I sell real estate for a living. I've sold real estate in Garrett County for just under 12 years. The first thing you realize when you start selling real estate is that value is determined by numerous factors. Location, size, but certainly in our market, the one factor that stands out the most is going to be views, whether it be lake views or valley views, but certainly mountain views that go for miles and miles. People that were specifically interested in purchasing property that were within the viewshed or a targeted piece of property never got to the stage where they were interested in making so much as an offer. Once they understood that the possibility of the wind turbines might exist there, they didn't have any further interest in that area.
I live in Kings Mountain Resort, which is a small woodland community on the edge of Somerset County near Fayette County. We did hear about the property devaluation, and we have 70 homes in our area. And I started to try and dig for information and found two residents near the Berlin turbine area that had sold their homes, and called him to see how he felt about that and what he experienced, and was also begging him to come to the hearings because I thought his testimony would be very important in that he's gone through the experience of the negative impact of the turbines, and it ran him out of his house. And as I talked to him, I could feel his voice escalate. He was explaining the strobing and how it really drove him crazy, that he put louveloir blinds up in his house, and that made it even crazier because the strobing was even smaller. He went to a doctor to get sleeping medication, and the thumping. He would explain that he would complain to the wind companies and they would not respond to his complaints. When they were being installed, they said they had no regard for his property, that they would walk all over his property, that equipment would go back and forth behind his property, and everything that he explained, I could just feel him getting more and more upset.
These deeds reflect amendments that basically are set up to hold the wind companies harmless from noise issues, from view restrictions. These are the same nuisances that we hear the wind companies say that will never happen. So they're placing these amendments to a deed for something they say never occurs. Two specific cases here in these deeds: one property sold through the fire sale 80% less than the fair market value, and in the second deed was a little over 50% less than the fair market value. So to say, does it appear that the presence of wind turbines are going to affect property values? Absolutely.
He litigated, he went through an attorney and sold his property to the wind company. We tried to get realtors to come and testify, get appraisers to come and testify at our hearings when we were trying to get setbacks for these turbines, and nobody would address the problem. Yes, I presented all the numbers as far as what the homes did sell for and what they were bought for in the end, and he made the comment that the families basically got what they wanted. But in turn, the families didn't get what they wanted because they were run out of their homes, which were not their homes for a long time, and they had to pick up and move.
I think it's important to understand the sequence in which these specific properties were sold. You have to keep in mind that we have a wind company that is in litigation with someone who owns a property in the shadows of wind turbines. Through litigation, the wind company buys this property at fair market value. They in turn sell it to someone who has wind turbines on their property at a fire sale, 80% less than the fair market value. I guess the question you would ask is, well, could you have sold it at all? My understanding is that the other sale that occurred, the person who bought the other property at a fire sale of 50% less than the market value was an employee of the wind company. So I think that we might have two cases that show property devaluation, but the question is will people be able to sell their property at all?
Well, who's benefiting from all this? The question regarding the taxes, when we asked at the hearing how much were the taxes going to generate, that was unclear. It may be $100, possibly $200, and thus the individuals would go into then, well, the turbines themselves cannot be taxed as an industrial facility because they were basing them on what a windmill, a small windmill on a general property is listed as, and the parts inside that wind turbine they were listing as, I don't know how they get around it, but there's a loophole.
We understand very small amounts of local taxes, and they won't give us a concrete answer. They say, oh, it goes to the school district, oh, it goes to this, and when we also asked them why don't they increase and tax their revenues, they said, oh, well, they are movable objects. They're not considered to be, they're considered to be detachable. And the comment was made that, well, then my mobile home should not be taxed because my mobile home could be moved anywhere. So they said, and another commissioner did say to me that, oh, to reform the taxes is too difficult a procedure, that takes a lot of time to do that, so we don't see that happening. So they did the runaround, and we've been given the runaround from state to local to township, and it goes round and round, everybody handing off the responsibility, and I don't think anybody knows what the other hand is doing until more questions are asked and more matters are pressed.
The amount that they were going to be taxed was not a large amount. And the reason that we were told that they wouldn't be taxed a large amount was because that they didn't use the word wind turbine, which is what it is. It's we're talking a big power plant here. They said that they were windmills, and they compared them to the small structured windmills that farmers use on their farms to pump water. That's not what these are. They're huge towers. They take away the sight of the sight of the mountain.
When the wind facility came in, the individuals were telling the community, oh, this is a fantastic facility. We're going to employ hundreds of people. It's going to create jobs for the area, opportunities for people, tourism. Looking at these things, they're not beautiful.
There were supposed to be jobs come here to Maresdale from them after they started building. Well, I only know of that one person who had a job, and as soon as they were done and didn't need a guard anymore, he had no job. And it was a minimum wage job.
When the windmill company came in, they were going to produce all these jobs. They talked as though there would be hundreds of people working. They have talked about bringing in a plant to build windmill parts to service the windmills. They would employ thousands of people. They produce very few jobs. In all, there might be 4 or 5 people who work at the wind facility site.
They brought in people from different countries. I believe a lot of the workers were from Denmark. They did employ some local individuals for security, to my understanding, at a minimum wage level. They currently, I believe, hire 3 to 4 permanent people now, local people who run the facility. I have had the chance to meet with a wind representative, and there's been some correspondence via paper, and very rude, very rude. The wind companies come in to these small communities and they wine and dine the local officials, and they look at us as backwoodsy hayseeds, farmers who know nothing, who think they can schmooze us with all their fancy talk and, you know, and say everything's going to be fine, and it's not.
I have had the opportunity to meet with one of the spokeswomen, and basically it was a brief confrontation. In particular, this person basically asked me what I thought could be done to improve this particular wind facility, and I'm not an engineer. I mean, it's basically not my job to decide what needs to be done to improve these particular wind facilities. These folks, before they put these things in, they're supposed to have the safety standards, have the nuisance issues, have all this stuff worked out. Why should I take my time and my resources when it's my tax dollars being used to build these things? Why should I take my time to figure out how to improve these things?
The wind company would offer either some money or perhaps maybe to put new brick on your home so you don't have to, you know, hear the noise, or, you know, perhaps give you a new satellite dish, or, you know, things of that nature. People have been real hesitant to talk about what they've experienced because I feel the wind companies are intimidating. They are intimidating individuals. They come in and they are so powerful, and they make the local people feel so I think insubordinate. And they have an answer for everything.
This is a place where I grew up, and I have been hunting all my life. It's a place where I had planned to hunt for the rest of my life. And my uncle's been hunting there ever since I've been hunting. And he looked at me and he said, this is a place that we're probably never going to be able to hunt and enjoy like we have probably for the rest of our life.
Be hunting, fishing, mountain biking, kayaking, but certainly what dominates Garrett County are the aesthetics, is the unblemished natural beauty that that area offers.
It's very important to me to have the natural beauty and the environment intact around me because personally I have lived in the country all of my life, and I wouldn't give it up for the world. I have not experienced anything like the turbines and the nuisances they have created in the past 2.5 years, I would not put this up. I would not want anyone else to have to put up with it. I think there should be stringent regulations and criteria put on the wind companies to have to adhere to stringent studies and guidelines regarding environmental policies and procedures, nuisances, noise levels, strobe lighting effects. They should have to adhere to it all.
Knowing what I know now about wind energy and wind power, if I had a magic wand and I could do something to change it, I would remove the wind power plant, or the turbines, the wind power turbines.
If I were queen for a day, and regarding the Meyersdale Wind Facility, I would have all the turbines removed and the ridge top put back as it was.
How would I change it to make it better? I told my nephew the other day how I would change it to make it better, and he said, maybe you'd better not say that on a video.
And it's not green energy. It's dollar, dollar, dollar.
I would say if I had my choice, if it wasn't my home, and if it wasn't the fact that I don't want to be run out, I would probably leave. Unfortunately, I am vested, and I want to farm, so my answer to it is if I can't raise, if we can't raise cattle on our farm, I think I'm going to switch to swine and, maybe go commercial. Unfortunately, there probably is going to be a stench with that, but we got a lot of turbines to fan it around, I guess.
Personally, I'm all for it. We watched them go up when they first started in June, and the big thing was when the first one went up. It's like just the immense size of it was really awestruck, really, that you could create something that large. And every day you'd see one or two more that came to work, and then when they got good at it, there's 3 or 4 more every day. And all of a sudden you see this whole thing across the ridge. Then one day they all started turning. Right now we can lay claim that these are the largest windmills in the United States. How long that lasts, someone's always going to build a bigger, better one somewhere.
We were a family farm. We had 65 milkers, probably 110 head. It's a hip roof barn just down below on the left, red barn with a silo. It says Ben Byard and Son on it. We were born and raised there. Basically farming. My dad was pretty tight with the money. We never had a lot of money, but we had a pretty good upbringing. When these windmills came in, he thought it was a lot of money to be getting to have these things on his property. But now that he's got them there, he's not so happy about them. He does not like the noise at all. He says, I never dreamed they were going to make this much noise.
For those folks who are lucky enough, if you might say, to have one or many on their properties, they're very happy because they could be making $6,000, $7,000 a year per unit. And there's maybe 7 on one particular gentleman's farm, and so 7 times 7, the numbers, you add them together and they're very happy. But then again, if you talk with the people who are in between all of those, who get up in the morning and they look up and then they see the sea of windmills, you have a direct opposite reaction. You know, some of them are saying, well, it's maybe intriguing to you, but I have to look at them all the time. I'm getting no economic benefit. There's no electricity that's coming back to me as a person, or I'm getting no money from this. And aesthetically, I came here because I wanted to be away from everything else. And now with what I'm seeing is, you know, there are more people who are around because people drive in and out looking at these things. And so their reaction is much different.
My mother-in-law just a week ago called her. She was having a fit. They raised her assessment $100,000. That's a lot of money. A retired school teacher in her late 70s. So are our taxes going to go down? No, our taxes are going up along with our utility rates. And I don't think it's fair that we should have to put up with this to benefit somebody else and not our own self.
It's short term, but it was beneficial that way. The restaurants, you know, they all had to eat. So how that affects, I mean, that's only when construction's happening. How it goes from here, mainly all it's going to benefit us is taxes. And I hate to say it, but I get the feeling that the school and everybody, when they get money, they'll just blow it. I shouldn't have said that, but you know, it's making it too easy.
Yeah, right?
You know.
We don't get anything back from that. I mean, there's tax dollars that are derived, but no one is seeing that there's a lowering of taxes.
The neighbors, and I believe these are the adjacent properties, as in, you know, contiguous, were given the opportunity to sign a neighbor agreement. So they did have to, they got money, and I don't know how much it is or how, under what circumstances you get it, but they receive a payment of some sort. But they have to sign away, I believe, a couple of their rights when it comes to perhaps litigation or something like that.
They sent me a contract in the mail. This is my 3rd contract they've sent. Nobody showed up. And they want the right to be able to go over, under, or on my property anytime they want if I sign that contract. I ain't signing that contract. I don't care if I get nothing.
These windmill groups have landowner agreements. That's what they're calling them, landowner agreements. What they are is basically gag orders. Once you sign that contract, they give you some money. You can't speak out against them. You can't speak out. You know, if you do, they'll come after you.
I think the people that have to live around them don't care for them. There's a few in the mobile homes with the neighbor clause that they did get signed, and they think that the little bit of money that they picked up, wow, it's great because I can't believe that they're going to give me this for nothing. They don't think that far.
I've been snowmobiling for like 25 years. I've been coming up here for 15 years, and you know,
Flat Rock Inn has been one of the spots that I've stopped at. This area has been destroyed landscape-wise by these windmills. And as they add windmills, I believe they have like 120 in right now. As they add windmills, they will close trails. They will limit areas where we can ride.
Tug Hill was one of the few spots in New York State that had snow. So if you don't want to snowmobile, your choices are come snowmobile around windmills, or don't at all.
No, I'm saying that the concern is that the trails are being closed by the farmers and the wind developers. That was
that could be a concern. Historically, the farmers have been almost too easygoing as far as allowing snowmobiles across their property.
I hunted quite a bit down in the Fenner area. Helped out, worked baling hay with some farmers. And in return, they'd let us hunt their property. The deer population on the land that we were hunting on probably was cut in half.
There's quite a few turkey hunters up here, and I haven't seen a turkey around here nowhere since these things have turned. Deer, I've seen a few deer, but nothing like I used to see. They used to always be out in the field here behind the house, and we haven't seen nothing since they've been turning.
I got a small fish farm. I raise fish, part of the farming, and I had 2,300 fish died, just like that. And so I started checking this stuff out, see what's going on, and well, I found silt screens that were ineffective, and a couple of sites behind the house had bulldozed off. Probably had a berm as high as the ceiling, and they just cut holes through it and let the water go right in the creeks.
Yeah, he had problems with his runoff. He's got a big pond just down here off to the left. Probably about half a mile below the tower. His house is right there, and then behind his house he has like a 7-acre pond, and there's a generator on that hill behind the pond. And the silt all ran into his pond and murked up his pond for the summer. And he was pretty aggravated over that also.
And they were putting a lot of stuff on the road up there to keep the dust down. And I came up, checked the corn or something up on the crossroad, and I see him putting this stuff on by the tankers full, and I went over to the trailers and I told them, I said, you can't be putting this stuff on that thick, especially in that gut. I said, the stuff's gonna run right down in the basin, right over in the creek. I said, I've dealt with that stuff before, it's not good. And they did nothing. They just kept doing what they were doing. And we had a rain and went down to feed them, checked my fish, and there they were. They were just belly up. It's like, okay. So I was led to blame it on that dust control stuff.
You'd be coming up the road and they'd be loading these trucks so heavy that there'd be concrete spilling out of the back of them coming up the hill. How about the dust? Oh, well, the dust was bad at first, and then they put that chemical on the road there, whatever it was that slapped up and got all over people's vehicles, because they didn't put it down at night, they'd put it down in the middle of the day.
The Blacktop Road was held up for 3 years prior. It was going to pieces, but it was still something a lot more passable than what it is now. And then this spring, before the project started, they set a man on the tailgate with a camera, and they filmed the whole road. The windmill company people did, and I stopped them out here. I says, why are you filming the road? Well, we want to prove that this road was already destroyed before we got on it. I says, well, if you're going to use this road that they've held up repairing because you guys might come, I said, now you're saying that you want film proof. I said, why would you need that if you intend to put a decent road back when you're done? And he wouldn't look at me.
When you get right down to it, this company that come in, they're gonna, they bid out a main contractor. Well, there's nobody in the area that can actually handle this type of project, so they ended up, I think their main contractor came out of Wisconsin. So all them people come here, and then the main contractors subcontracted all the other stuff out. You know, and if there ain't anybody locally that can handle that big a project, they gotta go, and they keep going out of the area until they find somebody. Yeah, the local contractors probably picked up a few, few people they hired on. It's going to be short term, maybe until the project's done. Dump trucks. I heard a lot of them guys complain. They kind of wiggle them right out of everything they could, so they're putting 20 ton of stone on, and I mean, you see the roads over there, they just completely just deteriorated. They claim that they're going to fix them, but that's yet to be seen.
Oh yeah, they said they were going to have 300, 400 construction workers here, and they were going to hire locally, and they were going to, they projected, and they sure give you the rosy picture. They told you everything to make you feel warm and fuzzy, so that they could get the project in here, get it started, get it going. Once they did that, then of course they brought their own people in and did what they wanted to do.
To keep up with that, you've got to realize the pedestals are made in Vietnam, the last country that whipped our butts in a war. The towers on top are made in Denmark.
Yep, Denmark.
So
Sweden.
where were they built? That didn't come from our economy. It's just taking money out of America and building somebody else's country. Vietnam and Denmark. I mean, it was a waste.
I'm projecting that there may be an adverse economic effect on property marketability for those which don't have windmills on their properties.
People that were going to come up here, I think, to build, maybe have a camper up here, they're not going to want them anywhere near the windmills. They'd be back in the woods, probably. Anywhere away from the windmills is what I'd say.
I don't understand why they call them wind farms. There's nothing farming about this producing electricity. They're a big, giant wind turbine.
I was blown away when I came up here and I saw the fact that, these windmills have taken away from the landscape of this area and limited, the real estate value.
When people from out of town move up here, I think it's better for the local people. Even as people buy firewood from the people who sell firewood. They buy stuff down in town at the local stores, the gas stations. They buy gas for their snowmobiles, their trucks. Walmart will benefit, from everything. People come in from out of town, they need something, they go in there, they might buy 10 things instead of 2 things, But if they're not in the area, then they're not going to spend the money.
Who informed the town boards?
The wind farm people, because they wanted to push this through. How much of them wind farms come from a private sector? It's all federally funded and locally funded. It's out of their pocket. It's very little, and it's terrible.
Did you attend any town meetings when the wind companies were just trying to come in?
Because the economy is so bad here, I have to work. I drive 2 hours every morning to work and 2 hours back. By the time I go, leave for work 10 hours, come back. I've got no time to go to town board meetings.
Did people in the town know that the wind companies were coming in, or were they dealing with the town?
The majority of the people were all indifferent as to what actually was going to happen, what was going to go on. If it wasn't in their backyard, they really didn't worry too much about it. Their initial response to this is that, gee, they look great. After they see them several times, come and go, maybe in the course of the day or the weekend, they start to look at them and they realize how ugly they truly are. There's no question about it.
So I think if you talk to the residents up there, they're probably fairly used to them already.
Eyesore, and that is it. A lot of traffic on the roads and eyesores. That's the bottom line.
You can hear it inside the house at night when everything is turned off.
That is the turbine.
Right, that's like a bottle rocket noise.
The noise really isn't a whole lot. From what I've seen, I've driven up a couple times and
You can hear them. I can hear them here on some days. There's no use denying that.
Because they're loud, they're annoying, they shadow people's houses, stuff like that.
Shadow come right through my yard from that one. When the sun got behind it, it's a very annoying shadow.
And I don't know what prompted them to build them this big, but they're big.
That blade's 125 feet, well, they give it in meters or whatever it is, 125 feet long. You start figuring that all out, and that tip's doing 100 miles an hour. It don't look it.
I lived 10 years in Alaska, and Kotzebue had a wind farm like this, and they didn't last but 8 years, and they were blown to the ground and destroyed, and now they're just all laid there as wrecks. I would really like to know how long these are going to go. You know, they're not going to last forever, and what are they going to do with them when they're wrecked? Just leave them? Walk away from them?
It was interesting. I was actually on a Caribbean cruise 2 weeks ago.
Lucky you.
Yeah. And I mean, you're out in the middle of the ocean, and you can generate wind anywhere.
It's true. More expensive.
You can put wind farms out on oil decks.
This is how we're going to get away from that kind of thing. Not just wind, solar, and I think on getting more efficient and biomass. We've got a lot of different options, and of course we need to make sure that it's also a good benefit to the community, and maybe if your community is a different circumstance, maybe it's not going to be beneficial for your community. I don't know.
We do need to cut dependence on gas and oil, but we need to do it in the respect that it's beneficial to the people, to the communities. You know, so we've got to get the word out to everyone that, you know, windmills can be a good thing, but it has its place.
I've been here 14 years, and I've lived up here on this road half a mile from here all my life. It was definitely more peaceful before.
We put up with cold, we put up with the snow. We sure didn't need to put up with this. And taxes. But we sure didn't need to put up with this, did we? They're here. What are you gonna do now?
You know, you live here, you pay your taxes, and you just get it put to you, you know, to be polite about it. It's terrible, and it should not happen. So if you people can go against it, because it's not worth it. The eyesore, it's just not worth it.
Nobody did any research like this in this area like you guys are doing. I think maybe they would have thought twice unless they really wanted the money bad.
The change that has taken place in our retirement years has been the most devastating of any change we've had to go through.
Mars Hill. A long forested mountain rises 1,700 feet from the flat potato fields of Aroostook County, Maine. So far east, it's the first place in the continental U.S. to see the sunrise. With the decline in potato farming, the staple crop of Aroostook County, many individuals in this community have been forced to seek work outside of town. However, some have now returned home with plans to settle into the quiet, peaceful life they once knew.
My father returned from Regina, Saskatchewan in 1914 with $400 and started farming here on this 200-acre farm and married my mother in 1918 and continued on owning this farm until 1960, at which time I purchased it from the family. Our purpose and intent in living here was to enjoy the benefits of the farm, a nice secluded area, quiet, peaceful, where we could enjoy the birds, enjoy the animals in the forest and wooded area, and enjoy the farm life.
In the winters here, silence is, the silence that's here is, you wonder if your head's working. You wonder if your ears are working. Because you hear, there's nothing. There's nothing. So you almost have to make a sound to make sure that your ears are functioning. You can hear the snow fall on your hair or on your jacket. Birds flying overhead, you can hear the wings flap.
We have children. We have 3 children, 13, 10, and 9. And we have a great concern in the investment that we put into this house, this property. And we don't want to move. We want to stay here. I had mentioned that I don't want to move. The words I said were, hey, the next place I'm going is, I mean, you'll be taking me out in a pine box.
In 2001, the UPC Wind Power Company came to Mars Hill prospecting for a possible wind farm site.
I think anyone that has lived in Aroostook County, Maine, has a pretty good understanding of the relative economy here. We are a poor area of the state of Maine, and Maine in general is a poor area of the country. So I guess you could say we're among the poorest of the poor in a sense. When you look at a project that will bring significant tax revenue to your community, I think you do have to set up and take notice of that. I think you'd be narrow-minded and closed-minded if you didn't do that.
UPC Wind came to us, and it was actually a contractor that they had hired that came to us. You know, he was the front man, so to speak, for the project. He was had worked for the U.S. government, and he was a soil scientist and environmentalist, environmental activist, and he was the one that brought the project to the town. And then he spoke with a lot of the local people and came to the town council, and basically got the council's blessing to go forward with the project.
Several families would move back to Mars Hill, buying land not far from the Boyds on Mountain Road, which is located at the foot of Mars Hill. Some of the families, the Todds, the Copperwaiths, and the Tardys, have saved for years to build a home. Some to raise children, others to retire.
He always wanted to come back, because we both were from Presque, born and raised, and we moved to Connecticut when we got married. He was already there, but he came back. And after he retired, we wanted to come back, and we did move to South China, but he still wanted to come here. So he's back, and this was our retirement home. This is where we put everything, our life savings, everything into the home. And we figured this is where we'll really live out our remaining days, and now it's pretty doubtful.
We came back, I found employment with the local processing plant, and we moved up to northern Maine, back to northern Maine, back home.
According to town officials, no formal meetings were held to introduce the project coming to town. It was felt these meetings would not be utilized, and most information would be obtained through word of mouth in the small community. A public hearing would be held for individuals to voice their questions and concerns. However, the town council had already given UPC their approval.
The first public hearing was an information session for the public that was offered only as a question and answer period. It was made very clear that the decision had already been made, that the approval was confirmed from the planning board and the town council that the windmills were coming. During that evening, there was a gentleman that stood up and asked the question. He said, and we don't know, I can't remember who it was, and we can't pull it from the tapes. He said that he lived very close to the project and was very concerned about what type of noise would be emitted from them. And UPC representatives, Peter Gish and Rick Tyler. Rick Tyler would have been the public relations manager. Carried on a conversation with the gentleman that that these windmills were basically aerodynamically silent.
The sound generated by the turbine is such that you have to be within about 500 feet here. That's even so.
Will these wind towers make noise? A common question found on the UPC website, which answers that virtually no mechanical noise from these turbines can be heard. If you are near a turbine, you may hear the sound of the wind and the swooshing sound made by the slowly turning blade parting the air. If the wind is blowing, the background noise of the wind in the trees is all you are likely to hear. You will not be able to hear any noise at all at the foot of the mountain. Between 2003 and 2005, 4 families built new homes at the base of Mars Hill with assurance that these wind turbines would not be heard. However, during the time, a study by Resource Systems engineer Scott Bodwell concluded this. The results of the preliminary analysis indicate a potential exists for the wind farm to generate sound levels at or above main DEP residential and quiet area limits at several nearby parcels. The study was included in the UPC permit. On June 23, 2003, the Town Council and Town Manager signed off on the permit application for UPC Wind to construct 28 400-foot wind turbines on top of Mars Hill. Town Manager Ray Mercero told the Bangor Daily News that he doesn't know whether officials saw the information included. He was quoted saying, "I don't know if they saw it, but it was in the permit. Not everyone, including myself, saw everything in the permit."
So when they started the blasting, at first it was maybe a little exciting in a strange sort of way. But then they hit the peak, the northern peak, and they literally blew it away.
There it is. Whoa!
They chose one section of the mountain that they felt for some reason they had to put a windmill there, and it wasn't conducive for putting a windmill there. So they blasted and blasted and just blew the side of the mountain off. And it happens to be the part of the mountain that we grew up on and we're used to hiking up and over. So it was very personal, and it felt like a violation. A family member was being hurt. So it was very difficult for our family to watch the mountain being just blown to bits, and with no way of ever being able to put that mountain back together. So knowing that the mountain that my father grew up on for 73 years unchanged was now forever changed.
last night was brutal. That was really loud last night. When the alarm went off this morning, you could hear them, as loud as the music was on the radio. It's not quiet anymore. And you don't see any more wildlife. And that was one thing we got a big kick out of. Like, we'd go down the street down here just for a ride when we were building. And one day I counted 17 moose. I haven't seen one since those windmills went in. We don't see birds. We don't see, we used to come home and the car lights would pick up shiny eyes out in the field and a deer would pop up. It was laying down for the night. You don't see that. We haven't seen any wildlife whatsoever.
Many of us have lived here all of our lives, and we're not characterized by lying or fabricating stories. And most people in town, I believe, know our character and the character of our neighbors.
From everything I've heard, and as I say, I live here and I've not driven around the mountain to even see what sound is like out there. From what I've heard and knowing the people that are there, they have a concern, and a very legitimate concern. They have a noise problem.
Mostly they seem to be worse at night, and I'll get up, take medication, and you could go back to bed. The only comfort you get is if you can fall right back to sleep, which was never a problem. And now I can't get back to sleep because you hear the boom, 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 like sneakers in a dryer, or you hear the humming steady, like a motor running, boom, 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 and it works in your nerves.
It creates a great deal of stress for Perrin and the family, and it shows in our relationships within the home, and at work, and it's difficult to help people understand why that would be, but the disruption of the mills, if it causes loss of sleep and frustration at varying points of the day, it carries over into your relationships. And we've certainly seen that in our home, and many of our neighbors are seeing it in their homes as well.
Healing Hearts Ranch is a therapeutic facility in Mars Hill where children with special needs can interact with farm animals. Animal-assisted therapy has many benefits for at-risk children with a wide range of special needs, including behavioral issues, attention deficit disorder, abuse issues, depression, anxiety, relationship problems, and communication needs. Dr. Nina Pierpont, a pediatrician who has written extensively on the health impacts of wind turbines, says, when turning with the sun behind them, turbine blades cast moving shadows across the landscape and houses, creating a strobe effect within houses that can be difficult to block out. Some people get dizzy, lose their balance, or become nauseated. Pierpont estimates that people most likely to be susceptible to symptoms include those with migraine disorder, those with age-related problems with inner ear function, and children with disabilities, especially autism. The strobe effect also has the potential to trigger seizures in people with epilepsy. The residents of Mars Hill face many battles ahead in resolving their situation, but according to many, the best way to resolve them would have been from the start. Community involvement, thorough education, and third-party documentation are all needed to ensure successful placement of these wind turbines.
If the town had at least taken a straw vote so that people could have voted on whether they wanted the windmills or they didn't, even if the vote didn't count for anything, at least the town would have known the way the townspeople felt. And I myself would have at least been able to have said, well, this is something the town people wanted, I guess I can live with it. But because there was no straw vote taken, nothing to indicate the way the townspeople felt, that's where we feel we've been shortchanged. Now the town wants to buy a new truck. We all have to vote on the new truck, but we couldn't vote on a project of this magnitude, which seems ridiculous.
While we are producing some things, whether it's hydro, whether it's wind, whether it's solar, whatever, and I think those are all responsible ways for us to look to go. I really do. I think that the location of these are, I think that's a little questionable. I think they need to be in areas that don't negatively impact people.
Like a firearm or gun. The gun isn't necessarily bad unless you do something wrong with it. Where they put these, how they put them in, they did a lot of mistakes, and they should be people around here should be compensated for it.
One of the errors that this town made was not educating themselves as quickly as possible on not only the positive aspects of windmills, but the negative aspects of windmills. There was a small group of folks who did try to fight early on. Unfortunately, one of the errors I think that was made early on was that one person had all the information. One person had all the knowledge, and or one or two, and the group didn't have the knowledge or that education so they could stand on their own 2 feet. And what happened at the town meetings, there was those one or two people would get up to ask questions, and the corporation and the town knew who those people were, and either wouldn't call on them or quickly diffuse the situation and had them sit down. Everybody needs to be educated. If you've got a group of people, anyone that's going to be under 3,000 feet, anyone as far away as a mile or a mile and a half, needs to be educated on the negative aspects of windmills, so that they can speak for themselves and stay together as a group and have a united front.
There's a lot of trust. I mean, the days of the handshake and the days of the verbal agreement are gone. This is 2007. It doesn't exist anymore.
We live among excellent neighbors, people who are severely affected themselves, and many, I say many, are considering selling the properties here. That's how serious the situation is.
It has, meaning the windmills and the development thereof here in the town of Mars Hill have drastically changed and dashed our hopes and dreams of living that solitude that we sought.
Seen many, many changes over our lifetime. But this particular change that has taken place in our retirement years has been the most devastating of any change we've had to go through.
is Weathersfield. I'm about a quarter mile from my previous location, and that sound is coming from at least a quarter mile away. This one over here is making the same noise. Here come the geese. Center and Bellinger.